tactics. Wow.
Yeah! Here we go! Here we go! Here we go!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast.
And having to go, yeah, but he did kind of do this.
What I'm hearing is you just want Tom Brady dead. Like, that's all I'm hearing at this point. You just want Brady
Well,
dead.
not anymore. He's retired now, so I'm good with that. I don't want him calling games anymore because, holy hell, he's hard to listen to.
Enough angry and, depressing from myself. Sterling, thank you for being able to sit there as my therapist for this episode.
Start the game already!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling coming at you for another week. This time, we are recording this on a Friday as opposed to a Saturday because both of us are very, very busy over the next couple of weekends. So it's a little bit different filming schedule. But Sterling, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. I'm not looking forward to the football game this weekend. I don't really like getting up at 7 a.m. to watch football. It's dumb.
Yeah, I used to get up very early to watch Formula One, and now I have learned I'm just like, you know what? Even if the race starts at 7 o'clock, I'm gonna record it. Once I'm up, turn it on, and away we go. And yeah, so I feel your pain, especially having to try to watch your team.
Mm-hmm.
That's never fun to have to do, especially I know I've had to deal with it the last couple of years with the Bears constantly being a team that goes over to England for a game for a year. But yeah, so I know you've had a week off this week, which has been nice for you, but both of our teams, I would say this weekend or this past weekend, my team gave me more joy than your team gave you joy. Both got wins, but I would say that the Bears probably impressed a little bit more than your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the Bears went out and they sort of dominated the Cowboys in several areas of the game and just were able to handle that quite easily. Whereas the Steelers, they struggled against the Patriots. You know, the defense was better. They got like 6 turnovers, 5 forced fumbles, interception, but the offense just wasn't able to capitalize on it and left a lot of points on the board. You know, and I know I was telling you the other day, I was like, there were 21 points, 17 to 21 points that the Patriots left off the board because of those bad turnovers. A fumble on the goal line into the end zone, an interception in the end zone, another fumble in the red zone. Like, all 3 of those should have been points for the Patriots, which would have been a win for New England.
Yeah, and I know this defense going into last week had allowed 10 games in a row of over 30 points or more. Obviously, they only allowed, I think it was 21 to 14 was the final score in that game. But yeah, like what you're saying, if those turnovers don't happen, boom, right up to 30 points, which is not ideal. So, but the offense got more points. Like this just felt like a very Pittsburgh Steelers kind of win.
It did, and that was even reflected in Aaron Rodgers' comments after the game, where it was like our defense won this game. It was very, very Blitzburg. It's like which is great. And he took responsibility, said he played like shit, which he did. Threw a really bad interception and just was not on timing with his guys. But a lot of it was the play calls, as we've discussed. It's Arthur Smith with just bad play calling at times. When you're going, why are you just running the same thing over and over? Why are you not adjusting at halftime when you've got a defensive-minded coach on the other side that has figured out how to stop you? And he is. And so at that point, you've got to adjust. And Arthur Smith just doesn't seem able to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that we saw with him in Atlanta. It's one of the things that we saw with a little bit when he was with the Titans during that time is if his one-trick pony stops working, you can typically beat his offenses. And his one trick pony, that the only time it was really good was when he had prime Derrick Henry when he was still young, and it was like, hey, we have this guy that's unstoppable. Maybe let's just hand the ball off to him 40 times a game and see him go. And it's like, wow, our offense is unstoppable. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how the Steelers are going to play against the Minnesota Vikings over in Ireland. I think it's Dublin that they're playing in.
Yeah.
Because it's not like this Minnesota Vikings team is just going to be a walkover or a pushover this particular week. It's going to be one of those things where I look at it and go, I know in our game prediction video, both of us were kind of struggling a little bit with this pick. I know you ultimately picked your Pittsburgh Steelers, as I think most people would expect you to, because I think they should theoretically be the favorites in this game. You're going up against a backup quarterback who's only had a week of real playing time with this team. But however, you watched that team last week and went, oh God, like that's like a real proper unit. And Kevin O'Connell, there's just something about this dude who takes quarterbacks who have played a lot of time and just goes, I'm going to mold you into something good. And he did it with Sam Darnold last year. He did it with Kirk Cousins before he went off to Atlanta. And he looks like he's doing it with Carson Wentz. It's bizarre, man. And I think that is a little bit worrisome for your Steelers.
Yeah, he is a really good coach. The hardest thing with this week is with these overseas games, it's always so hard to anticipate and predict because you've got jet lag issues. You've got guys that are more tired than normal. They're practicing in unfamiliar, territory. Like even compared to just traveling to a team in the US and doing the practice there and stuff, like it feels different. You get different vibes from these guys, and that's why so often we see these games in the UK and the scores are just it's not what you expect at all out of a game.
They're
And
wonky
so that's why
scores.
it's so hard to predict. Is it going to be a battle of the coaches? Are Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores going to be able to just straight up outcoach Arthur Smith, Mike Tomlin, and Terrell Austin? Which, if it comes to that, yes, they will just straight up outcoach them if that's what decides it. Or is it going to be more decided by the players on the field, just not quite having everything there and missing a step, that sort of thing? That's why it's so hard to predict these games. I like that the Steelers don't often end up going over there. It's nice not to have to deal with it very much, but I don't know, man. It's going to be a fun game either way because we're either going to get to see the Vikings do some fun, interesting stuff against the Steelers, and just embarrass them the same way that they did the Bengals last week. But again, Steelers defense is not nearly as bad as that Bengals D. And it looks like they're starting to get a little bit healthier. Alex Highsmith looks like he's going to be back. Joey Porter Jr. was limited in practice, which is better than he's been for the last couple of weeks. Deshaun Elliott didn't practice either. I don't know what's going on there, if he's going to be back soon or not. But it's looking a little more promising, a little less injury riddled. And I don't know, man. It's going to be a wild one to see. It's a game where Jalen Warren has to take over, and he's been doing some impressive things running the ball for sure. Like he's got this new like sidestep run through the line that he's been doing, which is just wild to see. You don't see very many guys turn sideways to get through a gap, but it's resulted in him getting through smaller gaps that other running backs have not been able to get through before, and he's busted off 3 to 6 yard runs that usually would be a loss of 1.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this game ultimately goes because it feels like the Steelers are just this team that is just identity, like they just don't have an identity.
Mm-hmm.
And most teams don't have their true identity week 4 in the season anyways. So like I'm not going to sit back and say like I can't believe that the Steelers don't have their identity yet, but it's also Mike Tomlin has been there for so long that you kind of look at this and go, you should have this identity basically penciled in week 2.
Yeah, I think it's just been a problem because there were so many new additions this year.
Yeah.
And so many veteran additions at that. That's the tough thing. That's what makes it hard for everybody to get on the same page. And it's also why I hate that the Steelers are going to Ireland for this week 4. Because usually we talk about, week 4, week 5. That's when we really start to figure out what a team is.
Yes.
And honestly, because of where this trip falls in week 4 and then bye in week 5, I feel like we're not really going to get a sense of what this team is until week 7 because of that. Because with this trip, like I said, you don't really get a true feel for what the team's going to be putting on the field every week, and then a bye next week, so we don't figure anything out then, and then it's just week 6 and 7, where that's really going to be the solidifying factors in, okay, is this team going to be competitive, or is this year a wash?
Yeah, and that is a really, really good point, because overseas games, you said it earlier, they're just such a crapshoot to begin with, because did the Steelers just travel, or did they travel earlier in the week over to Ireland?
Honestly, I didn't even check to see. I think they traveled earlier in the week because, I've been seeing interviews with the Dublin media and Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin as early as, yesterday.
Okay, because yeah, I always look at teams, and I'm pretty sure there was a stat that came out where it says teams that travel earlier in the week tend to be a lot better in these games, just because they're a little bit more used to it, as opposed to we're gonna fly out on Friday night, get there Saturday morning type situation, which I know.
Yeah, because you can fix your sleep schedule. You can get all the touristy stuff out of the way if you want to do anything like that.
Yeah.
And then get back to business by Thursday, Friday.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting. My Chicago Bears this week, again, I walked into this week going, okay, they're going up against a really, really bad defense. If the offense wants to start to show some improvement, this is the week to go out there and do it. And they're going up against their former head coach in Matt Eberflus, and this is Ben Johnson taking it over and all of this stuff. And so there was some things that were definitely in play there. And the Bears won in every single facet. First drive didn't necessarily go their way. I think they got one first down, but they kind of fizzled out. Cowboys go down on their first drive. They're starting to move the ball, and Tyreek Stevenson just says, I'm going to take this ball away from you. Thank you very much. Tyreek Stevenson, man, we asked him to be the number 1 corner this week, and he delivered. He had to go up against CeeDee Lamb when CeeDee Lamb was still out there. Now, not having CeeDee Lamb out there for the Cowboys was a big, big loss throughout that game, without a doubt. But it's not like you don't have George Pickens, or you don't have your tight end who you basically threw the ball to the entire time. But yeah, the Bears defense, they looked somewhat competent against a tough offense, which was impressive to see. And then the Bears offense, they went out there and said, hey, Eberflus, do you like the taste of penis? Because that's what you're about to get. And Ben Johnson opened up his big play of trickery with the flea flicker play, got a massive play, and it's okay, this is what this Bears offense can look like. And then just having a drive where he had 19 plays, where 11 of those plays in a row were run plays, and ended in a touchdown. You're just going, okay, we have a guy who can actually call an offense.
Yeah, which, none of us were really doubting. It was more, the doubt was, can DeAndre Swift handle that kind of workload and get the job done? He did against that Cowboys defense. I don't have faith that DeAndre Swift can continue to get that done against a lot of the teams in this league, especially the defenses that you're going up against within your own division in Minnesota and Detroit, especially. It's that really is kind of the big hole and the big issue now I have with that Bears offense is the running game. They have to find a running back. And you know, we're not quite there yet, but we're coming up on the season of trade deadline where it's like, should this be something the Bears are considering? Should they be looking at guys out there like an Alvin Kamara or something like that and try to trade for someone like that to bring in and put behind this line and run the ball for them?
Funny enough, I was actually looking at this and going, if the Bears were to make a trade for a running back, who would I want them to go out there and get? And I said to myself, it's Alvin Kamara. Because like he's still a clearly talented running back. He's not having a great season with New Orleans right now, but it's the Saints. It's not like he's expected. He is 30 years old. He does have a expensive contract, but I look at the Saints and go, hey, we'll give you a 4th-round pick this year or a 4th-round pick next year. And I feel like that is very much capable of getting Alvin Kamara, get him into the system. You add him to that mix, that immediately makes that running back room that much better. And there was a weird thing where Alvin Kamara, I think he would actually want to come to Chicago because he just randomly showed up to a Cubs game this summer where he was in Cubs gear. And I was like, is he from Chicago? Did he go to school in Chicago? Does he have any connection? And I was looking it up because I was like, why the hell is Alvin Kamara just randomly in Chicago for a Cubs game? And he didn't look like he didn't say he was from Chicago or Chicagoland area. He didn't go to school in Chicago. So I think they're like either he was out there for like a concert and just said screw it, I'm gonna go to a Cubs game, or he's like basically saying like trade for me please, for the love of God, Ben Johnson, get me in your offense. So yeah, I would love the idea of Alvin Kamara on this team. Do I love the age? No. Would he be better than DeAndre Swift? Yes.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a long-term solution anyway.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
short-term solution this year, next year, to until you can find a running back in the draft or something like that.
Yeah, it's I would love it, but
that's a few weeks down the road yet. You know, looking ahead to this week itself, up against the Raiders, this could be a good game for your D line to build some confidence because we've
hopefully
talked about it week after week so far that the Raiders offensive line looks like they're competing with the Texans and the Bengals for the worst O-line in the league right now. Just a lot of missed assignments, a lot of guys getting up into position and not having anybody in front of them to block because the dude's already past them. It's this could be a big week for that Bears D-line to finally get some feeling and some emotion and some momentum for themselves, because we saw the secondary last week was on point.
Yeah.
You know, that linebacking crew has been improving. The
Tremaine
D-line,
Edmonds
though,
with 2 interceptions last week.
right? You know, and the D-line, it's just that's where the concern is right now. It's Montez Sweat and who, but at the same time, Montez Sweat hasn't been doing a lot.
Yeah. Like I would say the best player on our defensive line is Javon Dexter. Like I either told you this as we were gaming or it might have been in the prediction video. I don't fully remember, but I said Javon Dexter is, I think, 15th in the NFL in terms of pressure rates just from any player, which is great to see. You know, that's what he's supposed to do up the middle. Yeah, I look at this Raiders defensive line, or pardon me, offensive line, and go, they've not protected Geno Smith quite well. But then again, Geno Smith is not a mobile guy. It's basically if you can collapse the pocket, you get a sack. Like that's essentially what happens. Ashton Jeanty, their 6th overall pick, he has 144 rushing yards. 145 rushing yards have come after contact. Like you want to talk about a stat of how bad an offensive line is. You just simply do that. 101% of his rushing yards are coming after contact. Like I talked last week about how the Bears have the most yards before contact from in terms of running lanes and that kind of thing. the Raiders are the exact opposite. It's like we're getting production from our running back while he's getting no space. And someone made the joke this week that I heard where is Arthur Smith or is Chip Kelly the new Arthur Smith of where he has this otherworldly running back, isn't really utilizing him in the pass game and not creating a bunch of holes, but he also has an otherworldly tight end that he just is like, I'm not going to use him. And I'm looking at it going like, when I read that, I was like, holy shit, like that seems a little too accurate.
Yeah.
And yeah, I said it before, bad O lines make bad defensive lines look good.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that trend continues this week because I think if the Bears can get their D line to bully Geno Smith, then I think the Bears easily win this game because pretty much on the defense, it's Max Crosby and who else?
Yeah.
And you know,
And that's what I said during our game prediction videos too. That is the battle I'm looking at myself is Max Crosby against that O line and getting to Caleb Williams is who wins that battle. Because if Max Crosby can get into the backfield and sack Caleb Williams one, two, three times, then we've got a close game, I think.
yep.
You know, if he gets to him, then this game stays close. If the O line protects Caleb Williams and Caleb Williams can at least get the ball away and not take the sack, he's still going to get hit. But if he can avoid the sacks, then I think this Bears team will be able to pull away on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that we have the two touchdown reception leaders in this game with Rome Odunze and Trey Tucker, which is it's going to be interesting. I think Rome is without a doubt the better receiver, but yeah, it's really interesting to see what's going to happen with this particular week for both of our teams for various different reasons. For you, it's can our defense get a stop and can the offense keep going, and for my team, it's can the defensive line do something and can the Bears offense continue this?
Yeah, and I mean I'm less worried about the defense after last week. Last week that showed me that the defense is improving. They're starting to get on the same page a little bit and they're getting more aggressive getting those turnovers. So that was good to see. It's the offense for me. You know, and I said it before last week that if the Steelers lost to the Patriots, I was not going to be getting up for this early Sunday game. I'm still on the fence. I'm going to, but with how badly they perform still, I looked at that and I went, this team is not out of the woods yet. This is still dangerous territory. They got to find a way to be scoring more points. Simple as that. I'm not as worried about the defense. Um, Carson Wentz isn't going to be able to carve up the Steelers in the same way that he did with that Bengals. Because ultimately, the issue with the Steelers defense is still the run game. They're still letting too many yards go by on the run up the middle. Having Derek Harmon in there last week definitely helped. So I'm glad he's back and healthy and finally playing some football. But then the other concern I have is when they finally get third and medium, third and longs, they're giving up conversions over the middle of the field again. And that's Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson. You know, and that's where my concern comes is is Patrick Queen focusing too much on the run game now that it is leaving that middle field open and making it easy for teams to convert once they get to that 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. And
Yeah,
so that for me is what I'm watching for this week is can we get them into those 3rd and longs, those 3rd and mediums, force the pass play to give TJ Watt the time to try and get a sack? And then if Wentz gets the ball off, is it being contended for Jordan Addison or TJ Hawkinson or Justin Jefferson over the middle? You know, is Cole Holcomb right there with them? Is Patrick Queen trying to break it up? That will be a key factor for me for sure. Because we saw last week, they were able to get the run game a little bit better, which resulted in some 3rd and longs, Drake May dropping back, and TJ Watt finally was able to get his first 2 sacks of the year after going the longest stretch in his career without a sack, which I think was like 4 games or something.
which is insane to think about. But I often say when it comes for edge rushers, like rushing the passer is a why am I blanking on it? It's a gift, not a right,
Yeah.
because you have to be able to stop on first and second downs before you're gifted that opportunity to
Yeah.
get that little bit of extra rushing against some guys. But yeah, it's one of the things that we've talked about with the Steelers team is that if they can't get stops and teams are just running the ball against them, that basically makes TJ Watt useless in the defense, because if they're just running it up, not useless, but like
Yeah,
not
it makes him
effective.
irrelevant in the sack game, in the pass rushing game. I mean, we've seen him in the run game. He's one of the guys that's in there almost all the time if they're getting the stop within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. He's always coming around the edge and getting that first hit to slow the running back down.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to definitely talk about this week was some of the really bad games that we are ultimately going to have on our television. Because I know in our game predictions video, we essentially had 3 garbage bowl games of the week. And I know when we get to this or that, I obviously have a question surrounding this little bit of a topic, but like, man, like, usually we don't typically struggle to go, especially early in the year, of going like, ah, man, like there's multiple like bad games this week. But like, I know in week 1 both of us agreed that it was the Steelers and Jets, as
Mhm.
much as I know, for instance, you didn't necessarily want to, and that game completely proved us wrong. And
Yeah.
then week 2, I don't remember who our toilet bowl game of the week. It was probably something to do with the Saints or the Titans or one of those teams. But with this week, it was just like, man, it's like the amount of time. Oh, what it was is our week 3. It was Bengals and Vikings, where it's like that game should just be flexed
Mhm.
to 4 a.m. But the fact that we have 3 where we're just looking at it going like, none of these are really appealing, and the fact that 2 are on Monday night.
Yeah, I know, and it's tough because like you look at them and you go, okay, when the schedule was made before the season, you're like, all right, well, the Jets and the Dolphins both should be competitive to be trying to keep up with the Bills.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not the case. They're both sitting at 0-3. They're both trash. Bengals Broncos, you were going, okay, well, this is going to be, young Bo Nix and Sean Payton going up against Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow got turf toe, tore that ligament. He's done for the season. So now you're like, oh, well, Bengals Broncos, that's just garbage. And then the Texans, we knew that O line was going to be bad, but we didn't think it was going to be 0-3 to start the season bad. And
And
so,
making
as a
CJ
result,
Stroud look like a bust bad.
right? And so then you've got another 2 0-3 teams going at it. It's inevitable. This sort of thing happens. Like when you look at it before the season, you're like, okay, these, one of these might still be a garbage bowl, the Texans Titans, because we expected the Titans to be bad. But the other two, we were looking at going Jets Dolphins. This could be the beginning of what, like, whichever team wins this could be the team that ends up in that wild card spot at the end of the year. Not so much anymore. Bengals Broncos, it was same sort of thing. It's both of these teams are looking at it going, we're in competitive divisions, so we have to win this game because we may not win our division, and that'll be our ticket to the wild card. Now it's the Broncos can still turn things around. They're still healthy. They just haven't really been clicking. The Bengals, I think you and I have both said it, unless they go out and make a trade for a Jameis Winston or a Kirk Cousins or somebody that's not Jake Browning, I don't think things are going to go very well for the Bengals this year.
Yeah, and I honestly think it just has to be Jameis Winston at this point. But here's the thing, is that I don't think the Giants want to trade Jameis Winston, because
I
at
wouldn't.
this point you have your new starter in Jackson Dart, and I truly do believe at this point Jackson Dart is just going to be the starter for the rest of the year unless he gets injured. But like this is kind of getting to the point now with Russell Wilson of where he's done. Like I genuinely can't see a scenario where Russell Wilson is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. Because again, he was great with Seattle up until the end. The last year with Seattle, he soured on a lot of people in that organization. They trade him to the Broncos, which again, at that point, it was like, oh my God, the Seahawks really traded Russell Wilson away. Like this is insane. Broncos, first year Nathaniel Hackett. You kind of go, okay, Nathaniel Hackett was kind of a dipshit, so maybe we'll just all take a step back and go, like, we're not gonna really take that. And then Sean Payton comes in, and it's like, okay, Russ, show us something. And then it took 11 games for Sean Payton to go, not only are you not going to be my quarterback, I'm going to give you a shit ton of money to leave.
Yeah.
And then the Steelers, again, Mike Tomlin basically decided after what he saw from 8 games from Russell Wilson was like, I would rather have Justin Fields back. And they ended up losing both guys. But it took 3 games for Brian Daboll. And now, mind you, there was one of those games that Russell Wilson looked good in, and he just went, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, that's the thing, but we talked about it at the outset of the season. Brian Daboll is on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Like that seat is cooking. And so for him, he looked at that going, oh, okay, yeah, we got to make the change because I'm 0-3. If I get to 0-5, I'm fired.
Yeah. Which, it's not like there's a really good path for him to even go to win a game, because it's like they're going up against the Chargers. Pretty sure they're going up against the Broncos as well in that department. In Denver, I think I could be wrong on that one, but we'll see. But again, like, they're going up against some tough defenses for your young rookie quarterback, man. Like, it is going to be tough sailing.
It will be, but this might be the best course of action for the Giants right now. Because Russell Wilson, yeah, he obviously was not having a connection there. Get Jackson Dart in there, get him some reps, get him some experience. Him and Cam Scatabo seem to have a good repertoire, good relationship, so that could make for an interesting connection. Malik Neighbors seems a little bit more excited to have a youthful quarterback in there for him. I mean, the problem with the Giants is I do think Brian Daboll needs to go. I think that is the issue. We heard it from Malik Neighbors before. He said that the quarterback's not the problem. And the longer the time goes by, the more I think he's right. It's not the quarterback that was the problem. It's something higher up than that, unfortunately, in this organization.
Well, I think it's head coach, it's general management. It's a lot of things.
Yeah, going back to Jameis Winston, I wouldn't trade him away either, because we've seen it everywhere he's gone. He is a great presence and motivator in the locker room. I'll be shocked when he is done if he does not become a quarterback's coach in this league, at the very least, if not moving further up through the coaching programs. I fully expect him to be a quarterback's coach because of the way he handles himself, the way he motivates guys. It's just so unique, and it's always puts a smile on guys' faces, even if they're losing 35-0. He's just got that ability. And so I would not move on from him, because he's going to keep this team morale up and going to keep this team motivated, even if they do go 0-8 to start the season.
Yeah. You just, I know Jameis Winston is on a 2-year deal, but there's just something screaming to me like Pittsburgh Steelers next year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I honestly, looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers next year, I have absolutely no idea. It all falls on how this season goes.
Yeah,
because it could be it's time to blow it up, or it could be, all right, let's run it back for the 7th time to try and break this losing in the first round of the playoff streak. Which veteran are we going to get this time? Will it be Jameis Winston? Will it be Kirk Cousins? Will it be fucking Mac Jones or something? I don't know, man. Carson Wentz, probably. Kevin O'Connell's going to make Carson Wentz look like a god, and he's going to be the coveted quarterback next year.
Yeah, and then he goes to Arthur Smith offense, and it's like, oh, wait. Yeah.
Right? And not just it with Pittsburgh. As long as Arthur Smith's the guy calling the plays, it's it's going to be an uphill battle every week, every season until he is gone. But what's the point in getting rid of him until you can find a head coach to be that OC?
Yep. And that's one of those things that we have talked about. And when we get closer to the end of the year or when firings start to happen, we'll obviously have those sort of discussions. One of the other things I know you and I wanted to kind of have a discussion about this week was some of the injuries that have ultimately plagued the NFL. Nick Bosa now out for the season with a ACL tear. And we just keep looking at this 49ers team, man, going like, I don't know what it is. These last 2 seasons, they've just been plagued with injuries, and it's basically been us going like, man, like, what god did you piss off? Like, Kyle Shanahan, did you make a deal with the devil that you can develop any quarterback that ever touches your team, but everyone else's soul basically just gets tempted with injuries? Or is Christian McCaffrey coming back and saying like, hey, I'm basically just sucking all the life force out of everyone else so that I can stay healthy? Like, I don't know what's happening, man, with that team.
I, it's been a few years of this too, and it's as the team has gotten older and older, we see more and more of these injuries happening, which kind of makes sense. You know, that's what happens as these guys get older, their bodies break down and then they start getting the injuries. That's why it's guys like Nick Bosa, it's guys like George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. Like, these aren't young football players anymore. These are guys on their second or third contracts already, sometimes fourth. Like, I get it, but I don't know how long they can hold out. Like, we've been saying it every year. Every year, the last 3 seasons, we talk about the 49ers Super Bowl window is closing. They got to get there. But we also talk about if this team has one injury, that window slams shut for the season. And that's what's happened every year so far. Is they get one big injury, a Brandon Ayuk, a Christian McCaffrey, a Brock Purdy. They go down for so long and they lose so many games that they're fighting to get to the playoffs. Or once they get to the playoffs, they're so injured that they just can't get it done. And like I feel that pain because that often has been the issue with Pittsburgh is they get to the playoffs, but they have such key injuries, but be it TJ Watt or the running back position or the quarterback position, where you go, they're not going to win because they're missing the key talent they need to compete with the best teams. And that's what's happening to the 49ers is it's just one thing after the other, and they can't keep maintaining this. We've been saying for a while the 49ers need to start selling, I think, before they end up in the position that the New Orleans Saints are currently in. That is what they're staring down the barrel at, is being the next New Orleans Saints, where they're in such cap hell that they can't possibly sign anybody from outside the organization. It's just like, yeah, we just got to re-sign this guy even though he's 30 and declining, because we can't get any free agents here because they'll want more money.
Yeah, it's there's just no real words for it. It's just one of those things you just kind of shrug your shoulders and go like, I guess we'll see. I guess we will see.
But I mean, it brings up a good conversation because we've been saying it again for years. Nick Bosa, ACL. We had JJ McCarthy with an ankle. We had Joe Burrow with turf toe. Can we stop converting these stadiums to turf?
Yeah.
Because it's creating more injuries. Like, yeah, it's a softer landing when you get tackled. You've got that bit of a spring when you land down. But because you got all that fucking that black turf shit in there, your foot slides ever so slightly in awkward directions, which causes tendons and ligaments to snap. Literally. We've seen so many Achilles. We saw Najee Harris tear his Achilles this past week as well. And it's just becoming such a prevalent thing where they were like, yeah, player safety, but now we're just completely destroying these guys' knees and ankles, be it quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs. We don't see it as much on the defense, but I don't know, man. I really want them to start going back to grass because we saw fewer injuries. Yes, we saw more of the impact style injuries of hitting the ground, but we've taken those big crunching hits out, that we used to see from that 2008, 2010 Pittsburgh Steelers that created the whole player safety initiative to begin with. We don't see those huge hits where guys are suplexing players onto the ground anymore. And so you don't need that softer surface to land. Like they don't need a wrestling ring to land in. That's what it feels like they're trying to create is this little springy landing spot, and it's tearing guys' lower bodies up.
Well, not only that, but like you listen to some of the owners talk about the idea of grass fields versus turf fields. The simplest thing is a turf field is easier and cheaper to maintain.
Yeah.
While a grass field, those are not cheap things to do.
Nope.
However, I just look over across the sea and go to Europe where can you tell me a stadium that has turf where professional soccer teams play on turf? I can't.
No, they hate it.
Yeah,
they absolutely hate turf.
When the FIFA World Cup comes to North America because they're playing in Canada, America, and Mexico, any stadium that they are going to be playing in has to be a grass field. Like it is being demanded, and it's going. Why are the owners of these teams going, we are going to implement grass fields for this, but not for our own teams? And it's 100% down to money. But again, you have teams in League 5 of the English soccer system that have pristine fields. And those are teams that maybe make $1 million a year. And they are finding ways to get that done. So it's like, guys, like I know Europe and England, like particularly England, they have better climates for a lot of that stuff. They don't get some of the harsh weathers, for instance, like in Buffalo or Chicago, Green Bay, and some of these northern teams. But my God, man, like if the Bears have grass field year round, I don't understand how some of these other teams can't have grass.
Yeah, and that's just it. The only place that I really look at where I'm like it would be tough to have a grass field would be Arizona and Vegas. Those would be the tougher ones because they're
But
deserts.
even Vegas has grass fields,
Right? Like that's I don't get it, man. I'm so sick of turf. I said it when Cincinnati installed that turf 2 seasons ago. I looked at you and I went, Joe Burrow is
Is
going
gonna
to
die.
blow his Achilles out or his ACL or something. I didn't even consider turf toe, but here
Yeah.
we are. And I guarantee you, it is because of that turf.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And I'm tired of seeing it. Yeah, great, you're saving money, but the reason we see it so successful over there in the UK is because they have groundskeepers that take pride in that, and they end up being a part of that team. That is what the NFL doesn't want to do because that just means the owners are going, oh, well, that's less money in my pocket and one more guy I gotta pay, or
A
let's be
crew
real,
that we
4
gotta
more guys
pay.
I gotta pay
Yeah.
because you need a whole crew for a true groundskeeping crew.
Yeah.
And
I do think it's going to be one of those things where I think we're going to see the World Cup come in 2026, and it's going to be a situation. And like this is me being hopeful, where it's going to go like, man, like the fields are great for the scenario. They're not getting cut up as badly as we think it is, even though we're having guys run for 90 straight minutes on this field. It like I just hope that the NFL and Roger Goodell just goes, listen, we need to start moving to these grass fields, guys. Like, and you just hope that the player safety board goes, listen, this is a stadium like MetLife Stadium is notorious for destroying seasons.
Yep.
And guess what? MetLife is going to be a grass field, so I just hope that we have a couple of games there where it's just like the NFL fans can just go, how come these guys aren't having complete Achilles tears, or an ankle is blown up, or an ACL on these fields? Well, guess what? It's grass, and that we just change that over, and the NFL goes, okay, we heard you. We're with you now. We're gonna basically just mandate it that moving forward, everything has to be a grass field. It doesn't have to happen next season or even in the next 5 years, but we do need to start making that shift towards it. I have been saying we also need to just move every single stadium to be a dome stadium, because at this point, there's just too many teams that just have the advantage of we play inside all year. And so it makes the fan experience a lot better, I think, as well. But that's a whole new other problem with that as well.
But it makes sense, and I agree with that. Like, these owners have so much money. Like, why can't you put a dome over a new stadium you're building?
Yeah.
You can have it be retractable, so on the nice days you can still have the sky above, you can still have the elements involved, and we've seen the same thing with the fields. The fact that those are now quite easily retractable as well. So if you have a dome stadium and a grass field and you're like, oh, well, we want to get some rain, it's going to be rainy, you
Boom.
roll it outside into the
Yep.
parking lot, you let it rain.
Yep, Vegas is doing that with
Exactly.
that's the reason they have a grass field there.
Yep. And it just makes so much more sense. Like that's why we're seeing these Achilles injuries and the ACL injuries. It's like, if you don't believe me, like yourself, go out and run on grass and feel how little the give is there, and then go find a trampoline and try to run on a trampoline, and you feel how much farther your tendons stretch because you're getting that push. That is why we're seeing these snaps happen, because you're pressing on this rubbery substance that's causing all of those ligaments to stretch further than they are used to, and you get that snap. And
you don't even need to go to a trampoline for that. Like, I think pretty much every single high school field is basically turf. Like, just like you can easily find turf fields out there. Run on grass. Like, you could literally be like, I'm just going to run on the grass that's beside it, feel that difference, and then run on the turf. Like, as someone who has to be at a football field that has turf and has been able to walk on it and move on it, it's like, man, like, this is like, I get it. The city doesn't want to pay the groundskeepers to go out there and do this, and it's cheaper and it's easy to make this still look good from year to year, but I'm like, come on guys, like, what are we doing here? But
exactly.
This is going to be one of the very few times I ever mention the CFL, because as we all know, I do not like the CFL. We are Canadian, if people are just joining us for the first time. We live in Canada, but we are NFL fans. There was some rule changes to the CFL this week that, depending on whether you are a CFL purist or an intelligent football fan, you are on one side of the fence or the other. Essentially, what some of these rules are is, if you've never watched a CFL game, the goalposts currently are about a yard into the end zone. They're still in the middle, but they're they're in the front of the end zone, and so that allows some weird things. Also, the field, as it currently is constructed, is 110 yards as opposed to just 100 yards from cross to cross. End zones are also 20 yards, unless you're in Toronto or Montreal, where it's either 17 or 18, because of course those two cities have to be unique and different. But there's some obviously very interesting, I say interesting, changes or rules for the CFL that have been ultimately changed. And we've heard this week that the commissioner of the CFL went out there and said, we are moving the goalpost back to the back of the end zone, and we are shrinking the end zone from 20 to 15. He also said this is going to be the first time in CFL history that every single end zone is going to be the same depth across the league. The fields are going to be shrinking to 100 yards. And the amount of CFL fans that I'm seeing losing their shit over this, I'm just going, you guys need to grow up, man. Like this, like get over it. Like and as someone who works and calls games for a Canadian football team, not like a professional team, but I have to talk with a lot of people and they go, I can't believe we're doing this and we're basically just ruining the identity of the Canadian game. I do think there should be differences from the CFL to the NFL, like what we see from the XFL or the USFL to the NFL. You can still keep some very unique things. If you want it to be 12 players on the field, let it be 12 players. I don't mind it being a wider field. I do think it should be 4-down football because at the end of the day, I think football is becoming a global sport now. We're having games played in Europe. We're having games played in South America. We're having games played in Mexico. It's only a matter of time before we have an NFL game played in Australia. It's only a matter of time before we have an NFL game being played in Asia. So every other country that watches or plays American football plays by the American football rules. And the CFL, if you want to develop, because again, flag football is an Olympic sport now. I want to see young Canadian athletes who play this game of football make it to the NFL. Start training them to play this style of sport.
Yeah, I get what you mean. And yeah, a lot of these changes are positive, especially for that Olympic situation and having more uniformity. I also do understand where that diehard fan base is coming from, because the CFL has been around for well over 100 years.
Yeah, it's been
before
longer than the NFL.
was. And the big concerns that people are having, the concerns that are really coming in, is we've seen the XFL fail. We've seen the USFL start to struggle and likely will end up failing, I think. The concern is if you start to try to be too much like the NFL, you're going to fail because you don't have as much money as them. You're not going to succeed. And so that's where their concern's coming from, is they're looking at it going, if you make it too Americanized, then it's going to finally fail, and then we have no football. Or we have to rely on the NFL to bring a team up here, and we have to pay $400 a ticket as opposed to $29 a ticket.
Totally. And my comment to the fans that are saying that is, what is stopping you from going to watch essentially the NFL rules, but with it just being the CFL? Like, because again, the CFL these last couple of years, I've been saying, is a league that has been on the decline anyways, and without any of these changes to begin with, because it's just not necessarily becoming affordable, or people are just saying, you know what, I just want to watch better football.
Yeah,
I sit back and I say, if it's American rules and it's basically like a fan league that is keeping it alive, are you going to stop watching your favorite team? Are you going to go stop watching the Toronto Argonauts or the Montreal Alouettes or any of the other CFL teams that are out there that you are a fan of because it's American rules? Are you just going to sit back and go, because at that point I'm saying, well, then you're the problem.
Yeah.
Like if I was living in Chicago, I would be going to multiple Bears games a year because I am a fan. And I don't go to our local CFL game here because I am not a fan of the league. But I say to those fans, I go, if they are American rules and you're not going because of that, then you are the problem.
Yeah.
Not the rules.
I mean, no, exactly. And I totally get some of the rule changes for sure. I hope they keep some of the uniqueness. I enjoyed having the goalposts at the front because it made for some unique situations. You had a lot more kicks return for potential touchdowns, because guys are going for field goals from a longer distance. You miss it, you've got all that end zone back there. If it goes wide left, wide right, you can still return it out. Whereas with the NFL, if it goes wide left or right, but it's out of bounds, so you will return. So that I did like. I liked the uniqueness there. And then the fact that you would have to take into account those goalposts when you're in the red zone. There were numerous times I would see a quarterback that was new to the league go and throw a pass over the middle only to ding it right off the crossbar. And it's like, well, that is a factor you had to consider. That was part of why the field was so much wider. It's like, yeah, you can't go over the middle when you're in the red zone, but you've got an extra, 20 yards combined on the edges. So I get where the concern from a lot of these fans is coming from. I get the concern from a lot of the players, especially the players that are most angry about it. I feel for them because they're looking at it going, you didn't even consult us on this. I'm sure some of those rules, a lot of the players and coaches would have been all for. They would have been on board for.
Yep.
But consult them first.
Yeah.
Don't just make these decisions and go, yeah, this is the game you're playing now. When it's like, I spent the last 25 years training to play that game, though, not this game.
Yeah.
So
no,
that's where I understand the frustration. I do think it is important for this league to evolve, though. You and I have talked about it in the past where we think the best situation for football as a whole is to begin to mirror what we see from the European soccer leagues with the tiered system.
Yep.
That is there. And I think that would be best. And becoming more similar to that game in Canada opens up that window to be, well, hey, maybe the CFL and the USFL become the farm systems for the NFL.
Yeah.
We see it in every other sport. Every other professional sport has a farm system. The NBA has the G League. Major League Baseball has AAA, AA.
The NHL has the AHL, ECHL.
From the AHL to the WHL, the OHL. They have the NCAA. There's everything that they've got.
Yep.
And the NFL is kind of the only one. They I don't know if they still have the European Football League. I know they did for a while.
No.
But that I don't think exists. And this is a real problem with growing the game of football right now. Is we need that farm system in place so that more of these kids that are playing football through their teen years and then into high school and then into college, they have more reason to keep playing through college because they go, well, maybe I won't make it to the NFL, but I'm still going to be able to play the game I love at a farm level and make some money doing it while still having another job on the side. That I think that's really important because then when we see all these injuries that start happening, like if there was a farm system and the San Francisco 49ers were able to go, oh, well, shit, Nick Bosa's down. But, we got this young edge rusher that's in our farm system playing up in Canada right now that we're going to bring him up as soon as that season's done in November.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
No, I hear you. I think that's a little bit of a trickier sled to go on with the NFL.
Yeah, that's like a 10, 15, 20 year, situation that it would take to form that out. But
yeah.
We all thought that it was impossible for NIL to become a thing in college football. We all thought it was never going to be something that could come to fruition. Here we are. And we're seeing it actually create some parity within the NCAA. It used to be 10, 15 power schools that were always at the top of the rankings, always doing great things. We're now starting to see some of these middle tier schools with enough talent, they can knock off the big names.
Yeah. I think it's time that we talk about our top 5 and bottom 5 of the week. Again, we unfortunately forgot to kind of do it in week number 2. So our week number 2, again, we had the exact same top 5. Our bottom 5, we had the Dolphins at the worst, the Bears, then the Saints, Panthers, and then Giants. We're obviously not going to dive too deep into that. But starting out with our top 5, not a whole lot of change here from 1, 2, and 3. It's Bills, Chargers, and Eagles. Yeah.
All 3 of them won their games. The Eagles probably the most difficult in that they left it right till the last minute, but they all came out winners. They all looked formidable and like they could be Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah. The Eagles, particularly in that fourth quarter, it was like, oh, when we actually remember that we're playing the game of football and we try, we're kind of
Yep.
unstoppable. For our fourth team on our Power Five, it is a new team to this list, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. This is a team that has not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but boy, are they so much fun to watch.
And they're clutch.
Yeah.
That's the big thing is Baker Mayfield. They're not doing anything fancy or special, but when the game is on the line at the end, Baker Mayfield is making sure that this team wins.
Yep.
And that's what he's done. The first 3 weeks of the season, 3 game winning drives. Baker Mayfield has won the game all 3 weeks so far.
And
Can he sustain that through an entire season? No, because that's the first time we've seen a quarterback do that in the first 3 weeks of the season. So it's not really a sustainable practice. They do definitely need to find some other ways to win. But right now, this team is one of the hottest, and Baker Mayfield especially. Like the stats might not entirely be there, but just the
the eye
presence.
test.
It's
It's
an
the eye
MVP
test.
presence.
Yeah. Our fifth team is the Detroit Lions after having
Yeah.
a little bit of a shocker in week number 1, dominating the Bears in week number 2, and then going out there and beating up on the Ravens to the point where it's like, okay, maybe that week number 1 was maybe just a little bit more of an outlier in this, and it really is still the Lions division to lose at this point.
Yeah. Well, and especially with the Packers dropping that game to the Browns last week, that's why ultimately we're like, okay, well, great Packers, you beat the Lions, but you lost to the Browns.
Yeah.
And so the Lions are taking your spot at number 5 because of that.
Yeah, that's a pretty inexcusable thing to have happen.
Yeah. Looking at our bottom 5 this week, obviously the worst team in football is still the same worst team in football. It's the Miami Dolphins. That, granted, they looked a little bit better last week on Thursday night. They were able to sort of hang with the Bills a little bit for a little while, but you still see it's so dysfunctional when they're out there on the field. There were a couple times you would see Tua take a snap and then just run straight backwards towards his own end zone, and it's like, you don't even have any pressure on you right now, man. What are you running from? And it's just like, God, things like that where you just look at it and you wonder what's going on in this team. And Mike McDaniels looks like he is crashing out hard. It looks like the last 3 years of just constant cocaine in Miami has done him in. Like he's up there on the podium, not making sense anymore, doesn't take the glasses off anymore. I expected, like, if we ever see him remove those glasses, it's just going to be full, like, bug eye, bloodshot eyes of just terror.
Yeah, it's Dolphins, man. Like this is a team that I think for both of us here at the moment, they're going to have to prove for multiple weeks just to get out of that bottom 5 spot. And again, like our next team on this list is the New Orleans Saints, and we expected this team to be at the bottom of this list probably for the entirety of the year.
Yeah.
And it's just been the Dolphins, man. It's just been like they've just been hurting themselves, and the Saints could very easily be the 32nd team in the league.
Mhm.
It's like it's just one of those simple things with the Saints. They just have nothing. They have nothing.
Yeah, I think the difference is we expected the Saints to be bad. We didn't expect the Dolphins to be this bad. That is why they take that bottom spot.
Yeah.
Because they weren't supposed to be. They were supposed to be competitive and trying to chase the Bills for the division. Not a chance. The Saints, we knew they were going to be fighting for that first overall pick this year. So,
yeah.
Much like the Panthers have been the last several seasons, we expect the Saints to probably be in this bottom 5 every single week this year.
Yeah.
Coming up next on the list, we have the Tennessee Titans, who also have not been great. They were the worst team in football last year. That's why they got that first overall pick. They got Cam Ward, who isn't looking bad. Like I'll give him that. Like he is very calm in the pocket, even when the the pressure's coming at him, which is very different from what Titans fans have seen lately with like Will Levis and the weekly screenshots of hilarity that we would get out of that guy. We're not getting that out of Cam Ward. Problem is, he doesn't have anything else on that team. He's just struggling. He's trying to revive an aging Calvin Ridley. There is some youth there that is promising, but there's not enough, unfortunately. This team is still very much in rebuild mode, and they only have the first piece of the puzzle so far with Cam Ward. It's going to be a long uphill battle for this Titans team over the next couple seasons.
Yeah, this Titans team, they're just a team that they have a bad head coach in Brian Callahan who just simply isn't that good. You have a young quarterback just trying to do everything that he possibly can, and it's just not necessarily going his way at the moment. Again, he has nothing. This is a team that right now is at rock bottom, and they're just starting to kind of like bend their legs to try to jump up to get away from rock bottom, and they're just not out of that spot yet. But our next team up on our list is the New York Football Giants, a team that, let's be real, at this point is a mess. Like they have one of the best young receivers in the game, not getting the ball enough. You have Russell Wilson one week looking bad, the next week looking better, and then the third week looking like the worst quarterback we've ever seen. And so they finally made the change for Jackson Dart. We'll see how that operation goes, but as we alluded to earlier in the podcast, where it's one of those things, there's a lot of bigger issues with this Giants team that they just simply need to fix, and unfortunately, until they fix those, this team is just probably going to be bad.
Yeah, this feels like a Brian Daboll problem in New York at this point. He was promising when he came up, when he got that head coaching job. A lot of us were looking at him going, this could be the guy that turns around this Giants organization. And he's just been treading water ever since, trying to stay afloat. And we've seen it when guys like Saquon Barkley leave the team and they go win a Super Bowl and have an MVP caliber season. And then you see a guy like Daniel Jones leave the team, go to the Colts, and all of a sudden look like he's prime Peyton Manning, throwing multiple touchdowns a week, not turning the ball over, in the top 5 for passing yards on the season. Like, this is the same Daniel Jones that in June we were laughing going, wow, it's the 32nd and the 33rd best quarterback in this league fighting for this Colts job. And we were talking about the Colts and Saints battling it out for the first overall pick. The Colts are sitting at 3-0. There's bigger problems in New York. And I think it starts at management and the coaching staff. Our last team in the bottom 5 is a team that lost to a bottom 5 team last week, and in the process lost their star wide receiver, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. They have not looked good in any of their games. Even their win, they didn't look great. It was, I don't know, man. This Cowboys team, it's finally starting to crumble, I think. You've got Dak Prescott now, CeeDee Lamb out for at least 4 weeks. I've said it. I think this will be the 3rd week in a row now. If this Cowboys defense had somebody that could play edge rushing, then they would have a decent defense, but they don't have an edge rusher for some reason. I don't know. Maybe Jerry Jones can figure that out. Even today, Jerry Jones dropped another comment talking about playing against Micah Parsons, and he's like, oh yeah, we'll be able to manage it. There's ways that you can beat Micah Parsons, obviously, or else we would have won a Super Bowl while he was here. It's like, man, just stop. You're digging your own grave at this point. You're just encouraging Mike Parsons to go, maybe I won't stop at 2 sacks. Maybe I want to get 4.
Maybe I might hit Dak Prescott a little bit more dangerously, in a sense.
Right?
Maybe I want to, give that little bit of a shoulder shrug while I'm on the ground,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Cowboys are in our bottom 5. They looked bad against the Bears last week, and they lost CeeDee Lamb. I think if not for that injury loss, they might have only been a fringe bottom 5 team for us here.
Yeah.
But without that key receiving threat, this team has nothing. I don't know if they can win in the next 4 weeks without CD Lamb there. Like, I know people are like, oh, but they still got George Pickens. Great, the crash out king. He's going to drop one pass and he's going to start throwing haymakers instead of playing football. That's why Pittsburgh got rid of him, because he doesn't get his way and he throws a bloody tantrum.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. But now moving over to this or that for this particular week. And speaking of a disappointing coach, which former Bears coach has done more damage to their new team, i.e. Matt Eberflus, former head coach for the Bears, now defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, or former offensive coordinator, now passing game coordinator for the Jaguars, Shane Waldron?
This was an easy one for me. It's Shane Waldron. Because, yes, Eberflus, great. He wasn't a great head coach. You and I talked about it at length last year and the year before. He is a decent defensive coordinator. I think the reason this defense is suffering so bad in Dallas is because they don't have a fucking edge rusher.
They don't have talent.
Right? Yeah. They don't have a star. And that's what's lacking there. Whereas Shane Waldron went into this Jags team where, yes, Trevor Lawrence is coming back from a bad concussion last year. But Brian Thomas Jr. was the top wide receiver in the league through the final 4 weeks of last season. And there was no reason that he shouldn't continue that trajectory and we should be talking about him being a top 5 right now. We should be talking about him in the same breath as Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Jackson Smith and Jigba, like all these guys that are great right now. That we should be talking about Brian Thomas Jr., but we're not. Shane Waldron
is a football terrorist.
Wide receivers go to die, unfortunately.
He is a football coaching terrorist. Yep. He was the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks when they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba. He leaves. Jackson Smith and Jigba immediately becomes a good wide receiver. And now, in a year or 2 years removed from Shane Waldron, Jackson Smith and Jigba currently leads the NFL in receiving yards.
Yep.
He goes to Chicago. They draft Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze has an okay first year. Rome Odunze, in the first 3 weeks of the season, looks like a true number one wide receiver in the NFL and currently is tied for the lead in touchdown receptions. Keenan Allen, who was also on that team last year, is looking like he's having a revival of his career, now being back with the Chargers. And it's like, oh, wow, this guy wasn't washed last year. It was just dipshit coaching.
Yep.
And like you put it best, Brian Thomas Jr., he looks like he's making money, like he's making business decisions out there where it's like, I'm just going to drop this pass so I don't have to take this hit, which again is kind of on Trevor Lawrence, but like it's shocking, man. Just like everywhere Shane Waldron goes, number one receivers just simply fall off the face of the planet.
Yeah. The bad news about that is
you have Brian Thomas Jr. on your fantasy team.
No, I was going to say that we might be talking about the future offensive coordinator or head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers at the rate they go. We're going to look at Shane Waldron and go, very Arthur Smith, Matt Canada. Let's give that a go. Let's see how that works.
Let's have DK Metcalf crash out yet again.
Right? Yeah, no. It's Shane Waldron for sure that is having a greater negative impact on his new team. My first question for you is, which team is going to be in more trouble when they go 1-3? Because one of these two teams will be 1-3 after week 4. Is it the Baltimore Ravens or the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think it's 100% the Baltimore Ravens. And for the reason being is the Chiefs are supposed to be having this little bit of a downturn. They just went the last 3 years to the Super Bowl. They've been trying to just keep this Super Bowl run going, and they're an older team at this moment. While the Ravens, while yes, they're not necessarily a young team, this was a team that was supposed to be in this conversation to be not just the best team in the AFC, but the best team in football this year. And if they go 1-3, that team has more problems than I think anyone is really willing to talk about here at the moment. And I think it is 100% the Ravens. Again, if the Chiefs go 1-3, they're missing a bunch of guys here at the moment, whether it's due to suspension or injury on that offensive side. Because again, once Week 7 joins, we're likely going to have Xavier Worthy back. Rashee Rice is going to be back.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see that offense start to click exactly. Right now, who's missing from the Ravens?
Isaiah Likely. That's it.
Yeah. But then again, he wasn't even the team's starting tight end. So, but yeah, it's 100% the Ravens, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too, because especially the fashion in which this game goes. If they have another choke loss where they blow the lead in the fourth quarter, there are some serious questions around the coaching of this team as well at that point. I think that starts to raise some questions about, is Harbaugh's time maybe needing to be done in Baltimore at that point?
My next question for you here, Sterling, is which game is really going to be the worst this week? Is it going to be the Texans versus Titans, Jets versus Dolphins, or Bengals versus the Broncos? I know we kind of had this discussion a little bit in our game prediction video, but after having a day to kind of sit on it, which do you think is going to be the worst?
Texans Titans. That's an easy one for me because I can at least look at those other games and find some bright spots. You know, that Bengals Broncos, the Broncos have a decent defense, so it could be fun to watch that defense pick apart Jake Browning. You know, that could be entertaining. And who knows, maybe this Broncos team gets right against one of the worst defenses in the league. Jets Dolphins, Breece Hall's been electric this year. It's fun watching Breece Hall, you know, as well as that Jets D line. That Jets D line has been entertaining too. Watching them get after Tua, that's going to be entertaining too. Texans Titans, we get to watch CJ Stroud run for his life. We get to watch Cam Ward look down the field and go, man, I hope they get me a wide receiver one of these days. And that's it. There's nothing else for those two teams, man. Like, it's that Texans Titans game is the worst one this week. It's the one that I think should be tossed out, but it's also the one in May next year that we'll be going, man, I wish we could watch that Texans Titans game right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's the Texans and Titans game this week just because you have this Texans defense that looks so good that should cause chaos for Cam Ward in that offense because they have nothing. But then you also look at that Titans defense. They don't have a bad defense. So that's going to cause havoc for the Texans offense. And this could very easily be a 6-3 game, or it could be a 3-0 game, to be perfectly honest here. And you said it best. In May, we're going to be sitting back going like, man, I just wish I had this Texans-Titans game on. And the funniest part is, this is only the first time we're going to get to see this game this year.
Yep. I mean, who knows? Maybe by the late half of the season, one of these teams will have turned something around and will look better. They may not be the toilet bowl later in the year. Who knows? My second question for you is, what should the Falcons do? If they lose this week to the Commanders, drop another game, do they stick with Michael Penix? Or should they go back and give that starting role back to Kirk Cousins, the quarterback they paid $180 million to?
I think if the Falcons lose this week, it will depend on how Penix plays. If Penix has kind of been playing like we've seen him play these last couple weeks, 100% go back to Kirk Cousins because you paid Kirk Cousins a lot of money to be your starting quarterback. And sure, you drafted Michael Penix in the first round, but if one guy just simply just doesn't look like he's capable of doing it, might as well go to the guy that you're paying money, and not like a small amount either. But yeah, like one of the stats I remember reading this week is Michael Penix versus his record versus teams that score 7 or more points is 0-4. Now, again, Michael Penix hasn't even started 10 games in his NFL career yet. I don't even think it's been 8 games yet in his NFL career. But that's not a good look, man. When you are winless, when a team scores a touchdown.
Well, and your defense just allowed the Panthers to put up 30 on you. You're going up against a Commanders offense with or without Jaden Daniels that is explosive. They are able to put points on the board, whether that be through the passing or the running game. That the Commanders have been able to score. They're putting up more than 7 points.
Yep.
So this is it. Michael Penix. Honestly, for me, I thought the draft pick myself was a waste of a pick. You did too when it happened. I look at this and I go, you drop another game right now, you go back to Kirk Cousins. If for no other reason than to try and build a little bit of trade value in Kirk Cousins before week 9 deadline.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at this going, well, maybe this way we can move him for a 3rd round pick instead of a 6th round pick.
Yeah. It's the Falcons are in serious trouble again, having a defensive-minded head coach. I say it time and time again, when you have a young quarterback, when you have any quarterback, it doesn't work. And
it bodes well for the Buccaneers, because the Falcons were the only team we thought might be able to at least be nipping at their heels come the end of the season for that division. It's looking like the Bucs will be able to coast their way to this division title this year.
Yeah. But that is it for this and that this week. And that is also it for this particular week of the podcast. Thank you all very much for joining us. For Sterling, I'm Brendan, saying peace.